Yo, what's your quick Ghost here? Today I'm bringing you guys another comparison video between the STG and XM4. And this comparison is actually going to be pretty interesting because, as you guys know, a couple days ago in the weapon updates, they ended up actually buffing both of these weapons, which is kind of crazy because in the Season 3 update, they also buffed both these weapons. So these two guns in like the span of a week got two crazy buffs that have made these two guns just, I would say, 1 and 2 in the AR category. I don't really think there's another AR out there that can really be considered as the best AR in the game. I mean, obviously, maybe you can't obviously make that argument, but for now, the two most popular ARs that I've seen is the STG and XM4. But a lot of people really can't decide on which one is the better one, because I have a crowd that says the STG is the best AR in the game, while the others say that the XM4 is the best. And for me personally, you know, you guys have to just wait for my personal thoughts that are in the video. But I guess before we do get into comparison, I want to say if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. When we're to 2,000, we were less than 40 subs away to get to the sub. Now we're about like 41 subs away. We're not at 1.96k no more, but hey, every sub is greatly appreciated and it's also very helpful. I hope you guys can do me a favor of following me over at my Twitch channel at @always_. I try to stream there pretty frequently. When I do, you know, I'll be going crazy. But man, with that being said though, let's get into the comparison. And here we have the Recoil Pattern for the STG, which as you guys can see isn't too crazy. And I mean, if anything, now it's even easier to control the recoil now with all the buffs that it's gotten over the last week. And I just want to quickly refresh your guys' memory on what those buffs were. So right now I'm going to put up on the screen the initial like Season 3 buffs that the STG received. And as you guys can see here, this is what started it off for the Season 3 update. It was basically just the buffs and barrels and, what's it called, the 50 Recoil mag. And that made the STG pretty solid. You know, it's definitely, I would say, got a little bit more attention. I'm not gonna lie, with the XM4 getting buffed in that update, I feel like the STG kind of got overlooked in terms of what actually changed for the gun. Like, I feel like people weren't really giving it the credit that I felt like it deserved after the buff, because this gun was amazing. If you guys watch my video right after the update, you guys will see that this gun was pretty fire, and I was actually having a great time with this gun. But again, like I said, they ended up, I feel like, letting it get overshadowed by buffing an XM4, which is already a great weapon, but then giving it more damage range, I mean, it made it just completely just broken. But now we're gonna go look at the newest buffs so you guys can understand what they ended up changing and what made it just way better now. And as you guys can see here, this is what they ended up changing in the newest weapon update. What's very significant about this is that the base STG itself got buffed significantly. That's where like the Season 3 update, I guess, kind of or didn't really do. Like, yes, there was base weapon updates in the Season 3 update, but it just wasn't like as much as it is in this one. Like, it was all about nerfing or just buffing attachments. But that's what, at least for me, is what it felt like. Because a lot of the weapons that I was talking about from the Season 3 update was just always about an attachment. Like, the Owen gun was an attachment, the MP40 was an attachment, the STG for the most part was attachments, and just all these other weapons were just all attachments. But now it's actually like the base weapon on top of more attachments that are getting buffed. So as you guys saw earlier, what's very significant is just damages were basically increased. Like, the headshot damage multiplier was increased, the neck damage was multiplier was decreased, but you know, it's whatever. Like, headshots really matters, especially when the maximum damage was increased by 3, the minimum damage was increased by 4, which is just ridiculous. And they did try to like nerf some of attachments, but to be honest, it doesn't really matter. Like, the Recoil mag getting kind of nerfed doesn't matter, because in the Season 3 update they ended up getting rid of all the bad stuff, or not all the bad stuff, but a lot of the important bad stuff. Like, was it the decrease in damage range, and I think I forgot what the other one was, where like, so it basically made the Recoil mag really good. I mean, just decreasing fire rate by a little bit, it ain't really gonna matter. I mean, and the recoil booster also get nerfed a little bit, but like, I don't really see anyone using recoil booster on their STG. It's more so the MX or Mercury silencer. It really just depends on what you want to use. I mean, people do use the recoil booster, but I don't know. Like, I just don't think it's better than running any of the suppressors, in my opinion. But yeah, man. With that being said, though, we'll just get into the XM4 and some stats. And here are the recoil pattern for the XM4, which, as you can see, is not too crazy. And when I was talking about the buffs earlier, I forgot to mention that, to be honest, the buffs for the XM4 weren't as crazy as the STG. And I'm sure if you were at the past, you already know what I'm talking about. Basically, like, I did say buffs But every time they did make a buff in these patch notes, it was countered by the nerf of the minimum damage. So for example, in season 3, when the update first came out, the XM4 got a damage range buff, and it wasn't like a crazy damage range buff. It was just a damage range buff. I think it was kind of noticeable, but it's not like the craziest buff out there. But at the same time, they ended up nerfing the minimum damage from 28 to 27. And then this following, like a couple days ago, like on Wednesday, when they did the other update, they buffed the headshot damage multiplier, which is something that's just crazy. Even if they did it by just a little bit, they did it anyway. And at the same time, they also nerfed the minimum damage from 27 to 26. But on my perspective, although they did basically do a buff and a nerf, it's basically kind of trying to balance it out. I feel like the buffs were more impactful than the actual nerf. Like minimum damage, yeah, it's important, but like, bro, a headshot damage multiplier is ridiculous. Like, I definitely feel that. Like, when there's certain people on certain head glitches and I get headshots, you definitely feel the change in the damage. That's just me though. The damage range is kind of a little bit difficult to feel that. I don't know if it's really that noticeable. I think in the first game that I used it after the first update, I would say that I did feel it, but that's probably just like placebo or something. But I don't know. The headshot multiplier though, that is definitely noticeable. Whereas like the minimum damage change, that to me isn't noticeable. I don't really feel like I leave people one shot. I don't really feel like I'm missing out on damages based off that nerf. But I just mean. I really think that these changes helped the XM4 more than it balanced it out. But again, that's just me. You guys might have your own opinion on that. But anyways, man, moving over to some stats for the fire rate of both these weapons. For the STG, you have a 600 RPM, while the XM4 has a 721 RPM. So the XM4, obviously, a big advantage in fire rate at first glance. However, obviously, you guys know, Vanguard weapons had the ability to have recoil attack, or I say recoil every time I mess it up. Fire rate attachments that help increase the fire rate, and Cold War weapons don't have that. So the STG is able to somewhat make up the deficit by just adding on some attachments, like the Gorenko mag off the top of my head. That's one that you can put on, which is what I use. I don't know if the barrel. I believe the barrel does not do anything that I use. And then you can obviously put on recoil booster, but like I mentioned earlier, recoil booster isn't really used by a lot of people, so I don't know if that's really the move. But obviously, you're free to do whatever you want. If you want to put on the recoil booster, then it's on you. But basically, the whole point of it is you can increase fire rate on the STG, help make up the deficit against the XM4. But anyways, moving over to the damages for both these weapons. For the STG, for 0 to 31 meters, you got 52 damage to the head, 39 to the neck, 36 to the chest, 33 to the stomach, and then 33 to the extremities. The 33s is where the buff comes into play, by the way. And then for 0 to 22.4 meters for the XM4, you got 44 damage to the head, 37 to the neck, 29 to the chest and stomach, and extremities, actually. And the 22.4 meters is also like where the damage range increased. It went from like 21 something to 22.4. So again, the damage range increase wasn't the craziest, but it's still obviously there. And obviously, man, at first glance, as you guys hear, the STG has way more damage than the XM4. But again, like all the multipliers and the fire rate and all that, like that's what makes the XM4 seem like it was better for quite some time. I mean, now like the STG has just a huge argument for being the better AR out of the two. But before, man, like that's what helped the XM4 stay at the top. But moving over to the next set of damages for 31 meters and above for the STG, you got 47 damage to the head, 35 to the neck, 33 to the chest, 30 to the stomach and extremities. For the XM4, you got 40 damage to the head, 33 to the neck, 26 to the chest, stomach, and extremities. So again, this is where all the other buffs come in, or just changes come into play for the STG. As you guys heard, the stomach and extremities, that used to be 26, now it's 30. And then for the XM4, instead of it being like 28, now it's 20, or for 28 instead of 26 across all the, man, I messed that up. Let me repeat that. Instead of 28 being across the board, now it's 26 across the board. So from the chest, stomach, and extremities, it just went down 2. Again, to me, it's not really that noticeable. For some, it may be, but I don't know, man. I don't really feel like the minimum damage is that noticeable. It might be in some cases, but for the XM4, I don't think it's that noticeable. So again, though, the STG still has the, the damage just advantage. And honestly, I don't really think it's that noticeable for me when I use the the STG over the XM4. If anything, I feel like sometimes with the STG, I leave people one shot and just lacking in damage, which is kind of ridiculous to say because it's getting buffed. But I don't know. The STG isn't hitting for me the same way as the others, and I don't know. But I will say this in conclusion, though, I do think the STG is gonna take over the XM4 spot. I think the STG probably is the best AR in the game right now. A lot of people probably can attest to that, and a lot of people are just already steering away from the XM4. Me personally, I still prefer the XM4, but I think realistically right now, the STG is the best AR in the game. But anyways, man, let me know what you guys think about that in the comments down below, and I'll talk to you guys later. I'm out. Peace.